That's what you do. You buy these clothes that cost money and make a difference in it. But we never do that.
Never complains, gets up, gets on, with a smile on his face.
They just want you to sit in your chair and go, hip hip hooray, for the Western press and the Western narrative. Regurgitating the same old, same old, same old, every single day, without the truth. If you haven't seen it before, please watch the first two episodes, the second season.
We are on the site of the castle.
And it was the first time the Beatles had really stopped being semi-professional almost.
Look at that.
Absolutely fascinating.
Oh, I was waiting for Jason to put me on. He must have walked away. So anyway, but he put me on in the end. I was just going to throw myself on. But it's good evening from me. It's going to be a great show. I say that every week, don't I? But it is because I'm talking about the Irish tonight. You know, we said some local stuff as well. But I'll be giving a full in-depth about the Irish. What it means to be, you know, to have Irish blood. Loads of Scousers. In the 1980s, there was 80% of the population that had Irish blood in them. So, you know, I won't be talking about that, but I'll be talking about the Irish coming over. People think that they just came over in 1847. They didn't. They were here long before that. They became dockers, you know, around 1801. They were coming over, working here in Liverpool. But you'd have to wait then until 1847 for the big influx. And that's what I'll be talking about. Why they left in 1847. Why they left. So I'll be talking all about that. But before I start talking about everything, I just want to mention Gap Painting Services, the sponsors for the Frank Carlyle show, because these lads are brilliant. They're fully insured, they're fully time served. Every one of them, every single one of these painters and decorators are brilliant. They're in and out. Don't struggle, please don't struggle trying to do ceilings and walls and even the outside. Don't struggle. Please don't struggle. Get these lads in. They're very reasonable. And you get special discounts if you're a pensioner. I have to say that if you're a pensioner, you get special discounts. Get them in. You don't struggle. Please don't struggle. National Health Service people. You know, if you work for the NHS, just phone them. Don't be leaving 15-hour shifts or whatever, coming home trying to do some painting or decorating. Get them in. Special discount for you too. And as I said, if you're not in those categories of the NHS and an elderly, it's still reasonable. It's still reasonable. You'll be surprised. And you'll be surprised at the workmanship as well. And that's Gap Painting Services, who sponsor the Frank Carlyle show. Absolutely first class. And there's references, you know. If you want to see a reference of the work that they've done, they'd show you them. That's how good they are. Okay. And as I said, I'll be talking about the Irish. Yes. Be talking about them. And it's been cold, hasn't it? Do you know what? When is this cold snap going to finish? Freezing. Freezing. I am. Anyway, I'm going to bring on the Oppo, the international artist. You know, people think that, you know, when I say that, and he is, he's international. He's one of Liverpool's finest artists. And I'm talking about from centuries old artists, you know, going back in time. This fella is absolutely brilliant. He's that brilliant that he actually painted me once. But anyway, here he is. It's the great man himself, a very good friend of mine, and it's Anthony Brown. Hey, Anthony.
Thank you so much, Frank. What an intro that. Tell you what, if we'd have met when we were in our 20s, man, we could have taken over the world.
And there's your thing there, Anthony Brown Art. Search Facebook, Instagram, or Google for Anthony Brown Artist, and you'll see his work. One of your great works, I have to say this, I hardly mention it, was 100 heads, 100 Liverpool heads thinking as one. When you grabbed a load of people, you know, prominent people at the time, and you know, it was incredible what you did, you know, with these people from the world of entertainment, from the world of medicine, from the world of everything, every profession, and you did them because what it meant to the individuals that you also painted was you wasn't highlighting them. You was highlighting their profession and what they actually achieved and what they gave to Liverpool. And that's the beauty of it, if you know what I mean.
It's what Liverpool meant to them. And it's a strange one, Frank, because it kind of got a little bigger. We were kind enough, you and I have met some wonderful people over the years, and those who work for the local newspapers, sadly now all but gone, but they took a shine to it as well, and they understood what I was doing. And it wasn't so much, it wasn't a show at all about celebrity, because you know what I feel, my feelings about celebrity is that it's just a smokescreen. It's nothing substantial. But what I was happy that it did is that it made some people more recognizable. So we're all celebrities in our own way. We're all worthy of applause for what we do. And that was really when Lainey and I started to do that. We didn't know how it was going to mushroom, but we just knew that the people that we were impacted by, the people that we were moved by, and yourself included, because a lot of people would not know our history in that we hadn't met, but it felt like we had met, because we'd have you on the radio as I'm plotting and scheming and scribbling on bits of paper, and I said to Lane, we've got to get Frank in, we've got to get this guy in. And we tried about 3 times at Radio Merseyside, where we thought you were kind of based, but of course you weren't. You were everywhere. But they thought I'd maybe lost the plot a little bit. So
kind of, to be honest, using me.
Leave your name and number, and you know he might get back to you, and you did. You wanted in, yeah. And the rest is our history. You know.
Our history, yeah, absolutely. And you know what, though? As I said, it's not just it's the people from the medicine. It's the surgeon, that lady. You know, it's everybody. You know, who knows that lady? You know, only her patients. If you know what I mean, that's who knows that lady, and she's a lovely lady. So she was recognised what she did for Liverpool, what she did for you, what she did for countless others as well. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, Anthony, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I've always said, and I will say till my dying death, that Liverpool's greatest gift to the world is its people. From all walks of life, not just your wealthy ones or your. We're all people. We all do a thing, and like you rightly said, there's doctors, nurses, teachers, historians, painters. All of
There's
us.
everybody, isn't there? The world of entertainment, great writers like
Yes.
Alan Bleasdale. I'm just picking them out.
Yeah.
The likes of great actors, the likes of Bruce Schofield. And I was with Stephen Graham one night, and I
Yeah.
was just chatting to him. Yeah, we've been to see Drew, and only in a little theatre down Seal Street. I think it was Pauline Daniels' theatre. So we were
Oh,
in there, and we were
yeah.
sitting together, and he said, "Do you want to go to a party?" I said, "Whose is it?" And he said, "It's mine." So as we were walking up, here's what he said to me. He said that Drew Schofield is the finest actor to come out of Liverpool.
Yeah.
That's what he said to me. Now look at Stephen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a Hollywood star. He's iconic.
And
And yet he says that about Drew Schofield.
yeah. Well, he does what you do, and unfortunately, there's not many people that do it really. And it's a thing where you tip the hat, you um you mention others. There's lots and lots of people, more than you would imagine, who don't divulge, information like that, which is quite personal. But Stephen Graham grew up in a part of Kirby with his nan, I think, where Drew lives, because Drew is a. We talk about proud Scousers, and we're lucky enough to have so many of them on our chat, and even honorary Scousers who don't live here but love the city. Drew loves the city. He loves the life. He loves the people, and there's a lot of talk over the years, and there has been not since the '60s, really, music and stuff. That if you wanted to make it, bigger yourself, whether you're a historian, a lecturer, an artist, an actor, then you had to go to London.
Yeah. Do you know what? We'd have to, we'll be doing history specials in the very near future, and we'll have to get them on. We'll have to get them on, just talking about, is, how can I put this? You just don't walk into things. There must be something in your mind to walk into this particular profession, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I've always loved history. This is what I'm saying. Yeah. I've always loved history. Always. I used to bunk off school, as a kid, and run into the library and pick up a book, say, on Montgomery or Julius Caesar or, many others.
Yeah.
Unbelievable people I used to read. And I love the history. So, as I got older, obviously, and I went to university to study history.
Yeah.
And I love English, and I studied English as well, literature, that is.
Yeah.
And it was great. And so what I'm saying is, the likes of Drew, I'd love to know what gave him, who inspired him, what was the inspiration behind his profession.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Do you know what? He tells a beautiful story about a teacher at school in Kirby. He will elaborate, and I'm not breaking confidence or anything on it, but he tells a wonderful story. So we're all kind of the same age, I think, when we got passionate about certain things. I know your passion is history, and I know you always have been about football and the beloved Reds. Um, I'm so around that time, 15, 16, whatever, and people are making plans to do careers teachers and stuff like that. Drew was in a class, uh, and he had an English teacher who was very, very inspiring. I was lucky enough to have a similar thing with my art thing. I loved history, I loved English, but kind of the doors closed on all that because you had to be the chosen ones to pursue that. But with Drew, this one particular teacher inspired, and he said to the class, "Has anyone ever been to the theatre?" And they all said, "No," because like working class lads live in Kirby, and there's not the luxury of being on top of a theatre to go and see. So this teacher took a handful of them, and one of them was Drew. And from that moment, it just turned on the lights.
Blew him away.
Yeah, and same as us.
Blew him away.
What we did, you know. I
It's
always
like your own profession, you know. Obviously, as you're growing up, you must have seen something. You must have seen something that inspired you. So what inspired? I'll tell you who I love, and you love him as well, found out. It was Leonardo da Vinci.
yeah.
I love his work for some reason. I just focus on Da Vinci and his vision. He was a great visionary artist. So what inspired you?
Well, Leonardo was there right from the beginning. My dad, who was a what they called at the time a commercial artist, he worked for the stores, Owen Owens and Blacklers and the like, doing the large scale posters and the adverts and stuff. But so I grew up kind of knowing that he was connected or loved art, and he had a book which is on the shelf up there, and I will grab it when we go to break. I will grab it just to show you. And I remember being like 7 or 8 and looking at this book, old hardback book, and thinking, that's what I want to do. And from there, that's what I wanted to do. I was kind of bloody minded about it. I went again to a school that wasn't greatly academic, although I thought I was quite bright. But we learn most of what we learn in life that sticks with us in our own terms. We buy books, we read books, we discuss things that, and I was made up when I spoke to you the other week, and you said you're going to have a change of pace and format with the history show and get back to what you love about it. We love. We don't have to prove anything that we love Liverpool. And we love the fact
Exactly. And there's you. There's you. With one of the greatest of all Liverpudlians, one of the greatest Scousers, one of the most talented people ever to come out of Liverpool, John Lennon. And, you're a great, everybody's a great, I'm not saying them all, but, we all love the Beatles, everybody, globally. They were the greatest bands ever, even today. The greatest band ever, and yet you're standing there in front of with his life story, funny enough, behind him, and that's that was the beauty of your artistry, because you just didn't paint a picture of somebody, anybody, whether it was from medicine, engineering, the theatre, anything, this fella has got his life story behind him, but
Yeah.
everyone else did as well, you know. Even
Yeah.
me, you know, you had some sort of life story behind me.
Well,
And
this,
it was unique
I
because you're
think
not only looking at him, you're looking at his life story too.
that,
Behind
I mean, how do we have spent more time together? Because we were pretty much were strangers when we met, and I said, Frank, you know, we love what you're doing. I would like you to include you in the show, and you kindly said yes, but we didn't talk in detail. We didn't pry, um, and I didn't say, give me all your private stuff and I'll put it in the
yeah,
picture. We just talked, and you supplied some absolutely wonderful bits of information, pictures, which we still talk about today on various shows, and chances are we might do later on.
yeah,
So it was that thing. I always had this notion that we are not one dimensional, and the great painters of Renaissance time
oh,
and in England, the artists, the court painters, you know, Anthony van Dyck and the like, and Hans Holbein being the prime example, would, to get across someone's life, they would include objects, you know, books, and the books would have a title, um, canes, something on the wall, maps and things. So you got a sense of what this subject was all about. So that
yeah,
stayed.
you're painting a story, aren't you? You know,
Yeah,
all the artists are. They're painting a story behind
yeah,
you know, the figure, the portrait, the character. So that it
absolutely.
goes on because I've seen paintings where uh, you mentioned a painting on the wall and it's painted. You know,
Yeah,
that painting, say like it's a landscape, for example, and you see that hanging on the wall, and that's what the
yeah,
artist did. Even a statue, it's absolutely fantastic.
yeah. And but that's the way we've communicated the bigger picture, you know, for years. And going back to what you kindly said about the works, um, the Lenin was the first big scale one. I'd started 5 of the 100 heads at the time I did the Lenin, um, but it did totally got people's attention, which is partly what you need. Because I was saying to people were saying, I think it's great what you're going to do. We kind of kept a lot under wraps because we were living in the age of the culture here.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was warned by so many people, do not discuss what you're going to do because they will nick it. So I thought, okay, I won't. So it was very, very low key. And Lennon was the big one. But the person that saw the Lennon that was attached to the culture company before anyone else, it blew him away. And he said, wow, what do you want? And I said, St. George's Hall, which had as you know, had never been done.
no,
And a couple of meetings later, we got it. So still, people don't know what's coming and what we're doing. But
yeah,
bit by bit, you know, the heads were building up, and we met yourself, and you were with us when we met some other wonderful
yeah,
scousers.
people, yeah, yeah,
And, and
absolutely amazing.
yeah, but Drew Schofield had he had the quote, which was, "Stand back, you see the face. Look
Yeah,
close, you see the life,"
yeah,
which is what we
fantastic.
used. Yeah,
Fantastic, you know, and like there's your self-portrait. And I know that Laney didn't do that, but you know what I mean, a self-portrait, which is great. It's just absolutely brilliant. I just wanted to, I've got the people are there. Lynn Ellis, she says, even in Frank Opal as well. And hi, Anthony
Hi, Lynn. Good evening.
and Gary Rigby, evening Frank and Anthony.
Evening, Gary.
And when we were talking about Stephen Graham and the other fella, Drew Schofield, she said, he's a fab actor. I don't know who she means, though. It could have been one eye, or it could have been the both, to be honest.
Both, and I believe the both. Well, I know Drew very, very well. I've never met Stephen, but I know gives it back the way that you give it back, and the way that as a humble bunch give it back, and that's what it's all about, And Drew,
absolutely. And Gary Rigby, he says, I was passionate about art and sketching at school, but never pursued it. But getting back into it now.
brilliant, Gary, because it's
Isn't
just
that great? He pursued it. That's
know,
it, but just let it go by the by. And now he's going back to it. So
Well,
his love of art, obviously, has always been with him.
yeah, and that's good because it's in us all to do it, and that's the sad thing about education. Sometimes, Frank, we can be educated out of something which is a passion to us.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not good enough. You're not quick enough. And so you're left thinking, doubting yourself, which is totally wrong.
No, that's right, because as I said, it's what's in you to pursue something. As I said, I've always been interested in history from a very young age. From a very young age.
Yeah.
But, at my young age, well, not us two personally, but our parents' experience and grandparents was the Second World War. So when I started going to school and bunking off school and running the library, which I used to do, and going into the Walker Gallery, which I used to do, because they were only. I just lived by there, in Jerry Garden. So I used to run into the library and pick up books, but they were mostly military people, the likes of Julius Caesar, the likes of Lord Montgomery, the likes of Nelson, these wonderful people in the military, because people were still talking, the older people, our parents and uncles and other elderly people were still talking about the war. So that must have resonated with me, as a youngster running into the library and picking these books up.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Frank. And we've never done a psychology program, but psychology comes into everything really. And I think what we have said a couple of times is that us, and I know a lot of our wonderful chats, were kind of born as we feel at the right time. So we're not in warfare. Warfare had ended, but it was close enough to be remembered. And then we would come out of the black and white days, and we were born into Metro Color days of the 60s and the 70s, and everything kind of loosened up a bit, which I'm very happy with.
But don't you think that we're very lucky, though? I'm sorry to butt in there, but don't you think that we're very lucky? And I'll tell you for why. There's me, obviously through the 50s, running into the library, picking out all these books. So, and they reckon, historically, that the 50s was the most sedate decade, like the Ovaltine girls and boys, it was the Ovaltine sort of decade. And then we went into the 60s where psychedelia came into it, where people, it was all music. It was fantastic. It was going on. And then it seemed to stop. Though the 50s and 60s seemed to stop.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying because in 1969 the Beatles broke up, but then we had you know, the 70s where everybody, I know it was going on from the 50s and the 60s, especially the 60s with America, and they're coming into the 70s and getting beams, you know, live beams from Vietnam, and the wars were still going on,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
That
And
was
I
that.
think that was a downturn then, you know, into from the 60s, shall we say.
I think you're right in that it was a downturn. I think the 70s was still vibrant, but as you said, yeah, I think that time, and certainly Vietnam, and certainly Nixon, and the stuff that we were now aware of these things. Where when we were younger, you had the BBC radio in the corner of the room in the house, and that was your pretty much your notification of what the world was going like, the world service and stuff. Well, we in the 70s were starting to see that you know things weren't happy, and to quote the
Well, we
hippie.
never ever got over the shock, did we, of JFK, for example, being
No,
assassinated on that November the 22nd, 1963. We never ever got over that. But music, this is what I'm saying. Music got us out of the apathy and
I
the
think
dreadful things that was going on. And music, that everything was all music, especially in Liverpool, the Mersey sound, the Mersey beat. It was
absolutely
fantastic.
it became a way of life, Frank, and
It
it's
did, yeah,
rather like like football saved the city in the 80s, really.
certainly did.
Um, and it becomes connected to fashion, what we read, what we wear, what we watch, how we talk, what we drink, what we eat. Things change, and it again. I'm telling the master this, but history repeats itself continuously. But I don't think there's been that influx of change which happened in the 60s, um, for many, many, many years in England, possibly, oh, I can't even remember, the Industrial Revolution, maybe the
Yeah,
start of that,
yeah.
which turned everything on its head.
Everything changed with the Industrial Revolution because, throughout the centuries, no matter how you look at it, people were thrown out of work. And the Industrial Revolution threw people out of work, believe it or not, because they had the machines to dig the ground. You
Yeah,
had the railway. The railway was churning up farmland. So the farmers, the labourers on the farms were getting thrown out of work.
yeah,
It was incredible how machines, just like today, go to a supermarket and what you get one girl on a till. There's a big queue to get to that girl. Yet there's other tills that you just go to and it's automated.
absolutely. You know
So
what?
there's no girls working or lads, there's no, so everything, it
And you know what? On a human level, that is a tragedy. What we're going through at the moment, and I've heard so many people say over the past few weeks, is it's like Pandora's. But once you open the box, and I'm talking about AI and all this, and as you mentioned, supermarkets, the corporate greed of that. Once you open that box, then you can't put everything back in and get things back the way they were. But I know on a human level that there are many, many people whose only conversation in a day would be to go buy a loaf and a pint of milk and talk to the girl or the gentleman on the till. That little 5 minutes worth of connection is gone.
that's gone. Yeah. It's like the milkman.
Yeah,
As I was growing up, you always heard the clink clink of the. I'll tell you what I always heard. I've never heard it again now, But when I think about, my childhood and going to school,
Yeah.
what I always heard, every morning, someone kicking a can down the street,
Yeah.
kicking a can.
Yeah.
The sound of a can being kicked. Used to hear that every morning. So
Again.
whoever made it, like got a tin of beans or something or
Yeah.
peas and put them in the pantry, the can out, and
Yeah.
someone would kicking the cans down the road. Absolutely. I mean, I'll just say hello to these. Gary Rigby says, do you remember Jake Abraham? I knew him at school. Rest in peace, brilliant. He was a very good friend of mine,
Yeah.
Gary.
Yeah.
I was doing I wrote a play, and he was going to direct it and star in it. And the unfortunate was getting put on. It was everything. The tickets were printed. The venue, we had the St George's Hall in the concert room, and it was going to be performed there. The unfortunate thing, COVID started, and that there was the lockdown, and never ever went ahead. And unfortunately, Jake died on me. That's so yeah, I didn't know, obviously.
Yeah.
Build Clopper statue. He says, "Good evening, gents. Good
Oh.
evening, Build." And he says, "I'm glad we're talking about history to begin the week, because I don't want to be thinking about that Liverpool game.
No. No.
I don't want to think about it myself."
No. On
And,
both park, really, it was a bit of an embarrassing weekend.
absolutely. And Lucio Magic. I wonder about our youth and the impact of screens, social media, non-stop, and porn.
Yeah.
You're right, because everybody can get into everything. Uh, we grew up. We grew up. No one knew what porn was or anything like that, because I'm not saying we were all innocent of things, but seeing graphic things like that, you're right. There was none of that. We
No.
don't know whether. I don't know. What do you think about social media, Anthony? Do you think that it's gone beyond? Uh,
I think it's like we said before. It's like it's out there now. So how do you stop it? How do you put it back? It's like the chap, and I've forgotten his name. Forgive me, but who um, designed the internet and put it out in the 90s, and it immediately took off. And someone was asking him about it. What's your thoughts now? And he said, "I wish I'd never invented it."
yeah. It's
I,
like what Lucio said there. How all those addictions are new, because no matter what, you've got what you see now. You can go out any day of the week, and you'll always find 4 out of 5 people on the phone,
yes,
not talking, but
no,
looking at the phone.
but
You see what I
that,
mean? So that's your social media.
again, yeah, social media is a big part, but also going back to what you said before about the corporate hijacking of retail shops and the like. Um, it's all you forced online. You're forced online with your if you got a question for your council, you know, when are the bins are getting picked up? Well, go online, check it out. You know, there's lots of people who don't have phones with our mutual friend Dave Charters, the journalist would not have a mobile phone,
No,
wouldn't have one.
no,
And it was the old days of how did we get on? Well, you would say, Anthony, I'll see you at 7 o'clock outside such and such a place. And I'd be there at 7 o'clock. That's the way we worked all our life. Nowadays it's are you sure? There's a picture of the bus stop. And I'm not a great lover of social media, and the more I dip in, the um, the more
The
toxic
less
it
you
is.
like, isn't it? It's the less you like, to be honest. Because I used to go on Facebook quite a lot. Then I was hacked, and
Yeah,
when I came out of it, because it was hacked, they stopped my thing, my account. I just went, okay. So, but I didn't miss it. I
no,
didn't miss it, but I had to get back on simply because of this, what we're doing, because it goes out on Facebook,
yeah, yeah,
if you know what I mean. So I had to come back on it
exactly.
under
And
an assumed name, if you know.
well, it's like me at work. I don't have a website. I'm not attached to any gallery. I don't do that schmoozing and business side. The business side of art is the worst. So I dip in and dip out, and I'm happier when I'm dipped out. But this, what we're doing now, and people being able to find you and find the programs, so that in itself is of use.
Yeah.
Me going online and taking the photograph of what I had for my tea is not really rocket
It's not
science.
my cup of tea either, to be honest. I think it's nuts. If you, I know, people like throwing things up like that. And it's all right remembering things. And I'll tell you something now. Um, and I know that they don't read full posts. And I went on a post the week before last, and what I said was I was getting birthday wishes. No, it wasn't my birthday.
Yeah,
My
no, 'cause
birthday is in May.
yeah,
My
I
birthday is in May.
know as well. Well, I knew it wasn't your birthday because I kind of knew when your birthday is. So I just put a a happy
Happy
day.
birthday. Yeah,
But
but the point is I'm making is I put up, I said, thanks very much. I was overwhelmed by all your birthday messages and thank you so much. That was it's only a small paragraph. Then on the next paragraph, I said, unfortunately, it wasn't my birthday.
yeah,
My birthday is in May. So, but no one read it. I'll tell you for why no one read it because uh, they read the first paragraph, obviously, it must be Frank's birthday. So anyway, they started wishing me happy birthday, belated birthday greetings. That's
yeah,
what I was getting. So they never read. Unfortunately, it's not my birthday,
yeah.
if you know what I mean. So that
Um,
it's just the way it goes anyway.
well,
Uh,
we take we take the good. If the good people that we mix with, it's like I always associate it. If we're going out for a drink and you've got a big table and you don't want any miserable bleeders on in your company.
so and
uh,
so, yeah.
and so more often than not we keep the company of good people.
Yeah.
Even on social media, we do get some spanners who are quite
Oh,
tough. And I think because it gives them a platform, no, it gives them a voice, and they might be 2 foot nothing, look like Danny DeVito, but gives them so they can criticize. And I don't like that. And unfortunately, that's the way the world is going because we can stir that up. And as we're seeing over the pond in America, that's what's, you know,
well, yeah, there's a good point there. What Gary Rigby says, he says, I like social media, but try not to get too involved now. I got sick of people being rude to me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
That's
think
why I
that says it all.
won't
That
do,
says it all.
yeah,
But it's just And it's like what Liverpool Jabby says, me too. I grew up with porn and still struggle with the addiction and scrolling on TikTok. Stop it. Behave yourselves. Or I'll ban you. But anyway, Christopher says, excuse me, hi Frank and Anthony and chat. Social media can be a good documentary about we live today, but sadly, it's full of BS and propaganda. Spot on.
It can be, Christopher. Yeah, and what it does give us is the power, if you like, to expose something. And I have jumped on social media and found something which I've checked somewhere else, which is quite relevant to the way I'm thinking. I'm thinking, that's right, but you wouldn't get that in a newspaper or on a radio show. So we do get. I know you do some keynote forums and the like where you get factual information. And unfortunately, we're living in a world now where it doesn't come with a label to say this is factual, this is lies. You've got to find your way through it. But
well, that's the juxtaposition between, what's the truth and what's propaganda.
yes,
And that's what this is what we try to work out. But people, believe it or not, they believe. I'd say 90% of people believe in propaganda.
yeah, it's easy.
I'll give you an idea. Just let me do this. It's like there's a great one of the greatest investigative reporters today is a fella named Seymour Hersh. He's American, and Seymour Hersh came out with a massive article, and it was about the Nord Stream pipeline. That belonged to Russia, that was feeding the whole of Europe with cheap, free energy. So it got blown up, and that was the most catastrophic natural disaster in history. And all of a sudden, there was a fella named Sikorski who was a Polish minister, and he's married to an American. Anyway, he said, thank you, USA, after it was blown up. Thank you, USA. Liz Truss, who was the Prime Minister at the time, picked up the phone and phoned the White House and said to Blinken, and said, it's done. It's done, she said. And then, you even had Blinken saying, not Blinken, you even had Biden himself, while Schultz was there. Someone asked him about the Nord Stream, but it wasn't blown up by then. And he said, you're trying to stop the Nord Stream, it could be damaged or whatever. She said, it was a female journalist. She said, how are you going to stop that? He said, we have means. So that was it. And Seymour Hersh investigated it, not just right away, he was investigating it. It wasn't like the next week and said, oh, they blew it up. But he came out after months and months and months of investigation and said that America blew up the Nord Stream. You see what I mean? And
Yes.
that was all, came out. Well, wasn't it? They were blaming the Russians. That was the propaganda.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now it's being brushed under the carpet. No one mentions it. Nobody mentions it.
Well,
And that's the sad thing about the truth and propaganda.
Yeah.
Then in the middle of the truth and the propaganda, it's not the lies, it's the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
So at the end of the conspiracy theory, it's so easy. It's so easy to say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory that the Americans blew it up. But you know that it's the truth that they did, and there's evidence there that they did, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is 90%, 80%, I'd say 80 to 90% of people believe in propaganda. They just believe it. And, you know, what propaganda is really is lies
Yes.
by
Yeah.
governments, if you
Yes.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
No.
then you get your social media. And the social media, you know, with people believing in the propaganda, they say, oh, those Russians or those whoever, you know, are horrible people because look what they've done. They've destroyed, you know, the economies of Europe. But they're believing in the propaganda, unfortunately.
Yes. And that's been with us again historically since the beginning, almost the beginning of time. You know, to lie and deceive people, so to get them on side or whatever, you know. And your
Yeah,
very subject tonight, which is a subject which is so close to my heart and the family. Again, the same propaganda and lies over centuries.
well, I'm glad that Christopher mentioned that. I just want to read a couple of things here because I can relate to this. One of them, right? Gary Rigby says it's a good and bad side. It's got good and bad side. This is social media. I
Yeah,
usually just watch YouTube now, and I only use Facebook when I have to. That's me, that Gary. I use YouTube, to be honest. Now here we have Tony LFC. He says, Gary, I don't know if you remember the art teacher called Mrs. Craig. Well, she was the mother of Daniel Craig. I remember bringing her. I remember her bringing Daniel into school one week because his school was off. And Tony says, Gary the actor, you know,
yeah,
Daniel Craig. Now, I think I told you this. I don't know whether I've told the people on here, but I interviewed Daniel Craig's granddad. And Daniel Craig's granddad was a remarkable man. He was a remarkable man because he joined the army, and he was at Dunkirk. He scrambled, you know, to Dunkirk and got back over. He was an officer, so he resigned his commission, and he went into the Royal Air Force, and he was shot down.
wow,
He was shot down, so he said, that's so he resigned his commission, went into the Navy. He was torpedoed.
wow,
He said, oh,
wow.
I had enough of this. So he went into intelligence. He resigned his commission, and he went into intelligence, and that's where he met. And this is the irony. This is where he met Ian Fleming, because Ian Fleming, you know, he was in intelligence, and the
MI6.
likes of James Bond, you know, to the contrary of what people believe that he's just a fictional character, he was a real life fella. He
Yeah,
was a real life fella, James Bond, you know, the character James Bond, because
yeah,
he was an agent, and he was an agent in the Second World War.
yeah.
And but the irony is that his grandson will become James Bond on the silver screen.
Well, for my money, I think he was the best one.
Yeah, people do. People do. Do you know who I think was the best Bond? Was Roger Moore. Because when
Yeah,
you see James Bond, you know, he's this big suave fella,
yeah,
really suave, and, you know, got the great accent and everything else. and could get himself out of danger. And girls fell for him, you know, because he was a big answer, which he was apparently, this fella. Anyway, him, Roger Moore, my favourite Bond.
Yeah, I love those films, and they were of a great time as well. The 70s, Live and Let Die and stuff. They were good, yeah. But yeah.
And the black and white boy, the black and white boy. Evening all. Technology is great when it saves us, but we're now in the world where such surveillance is running us. You can't, honestly, you're so right. You're so right, black and white boy. Yeah. Honestly, you are. Now listen, we're going to go for a break. We're going to go for a break. And I just want to add this to the stage, because this is what I'll be talking about when Anthony and I will come back. And it's the Irish.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Jason will be putting a clip on, I don't think. So what I'll do, I'll just go and get myself a drink, if you don't mind, Anthony.
No, go on.
I'll just leave that up there.
Yeah.
Will be a minute.
Okay, Frank.
This is St John's Gardens, but why isn't it called St George's Gardens? After all, this is St George's Hall. The answer is simple. What stood here since 1771 was St John's Church. And don't forget, St George's Hall wasn't built until 1854. Take a look at this. This is an actual picture of St John's Church being demolished in 1898. Sadly, there are not many pictures left of it. There's a great urban myth surrounding the hall, and the myth is that the hall was built back to front. But how can the hall be built back to front when St John's Church is already established in place? And also, what do you associate with the church? A cemetery. It's as simple as that. So why would the architect, Harvey Lonsdale Elms, have a steps plateau coming into a cemetery? The hall was not built back to front because Lime Street Station, that was there in 1836, and only the rich people could afford to get on the trains, came out to Lime Street Station and seen this wonderful building with its steps and plateau. The myth, unfortunately, continues with the death of its architect, Harvey Lonsdale Elms. He was supposed to have committed suicide when he returned 12 years later and seeing the hall built back to front. It's a load of nonsense, and it's been fabricated over the years. Unfortunately, he did die 7 years before the completion of the hall in Jamaica, where he was sent by his physicians to recover from a common disease, tuberculosis. There are other myths within this vicinity. So let's go over and have a look at Nelson. Nelson. We're on the steps of the World Museum, William Brown Street. And did I say a moment or two ago that this was Nelson? In fact, it's an easy mistake to make. Actually, it's the Duke of Wellington. And people often ask why he doesn't overlook the city. Well, he's actually facing Waterloo as the crow flies, his most famous victory in 1815. You'll like this. He's not made from bronze or marble or stone. He's made from the French cannons captured at Waterloo. No, it's not there neither. It's very hard to find these things. Well, it's not here. Let's see. Ah, yeah, there it is here. Because when you go in there, down there, there's a spiral staircase that leads right to the top. You open up the doors and you clean the monument itself and the Duke. Where shall we go next? From a huge monument to a much smaller one in Rodney Street, and there's some story behind that one. Staying with great engineering feats, let's move down to the waterfront for one of the greatest buildings in the world. Why is it a Liverpool unequalled? Simple. Because it's the very first steel infrastructure in the world. New York and many other major cities around the world simply copied it. Underneath the famous Liverpool stands the biggest clock face in the country, and the dignitaries in 1911 actually had a dinner around it before it was put in place. So the biggest clock face in the country must have the biggest mechanism in the country. Now, afraid not. Just have a look at this. Can you believe that? The chimes are ordinary piano wire. But hey, don't tell anyone, because what they don't know won't hurt.
Fascinating.
How about that? How about that?
There's so much I'd not seen before about the Liver building. I love that. The clock mechanism is like, wow.
Yeah, when we were in there, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And the bell, it chimed, you know, it's not that loud.
Wow.
It's loud, but it chimed as we were filming.
The pleasure years ago, 2005, of being allowed up in the boardroom and having a look around in there, and it was mind blowing to look at.
Being all around, being everywhere in the three buildings, by the way. You know, in the Cunard and in the Port of Liverpool. You know, three of the finest Edwardian buildings that you could ever go into. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I just love them, you know. I love Liverpool architecture, as you know. And It's just fascinating. What I want to talk about, Anthony, is the Irish. And this is one of my specials because this is what we'll be, we won't be talking about the Irish, the next one. And this is what I just want to give out, we'll be talking, I'll even be talking about the Romans as well in future specials, but also the English Civil War, Napoleon, giving a rundown on Napoleon himself, what kind of a character he was. The French Revolution, was he involved in that? No, he wasn't, just to, clarify things. So I'll be talking about the French Revolution. I'll be talking about the First World War as well. The thing is, I'll be also talking about what it was like during the 1800s and the 1900s, and how the 20th century, changed everything, if you know what I mean, from those particular periods. But what I want to talk about tonight is this, and it's the Irish. And what we've got to think of, people think that the Irish, are just coming over in dribs and drabs and whatever. They've been coming over here to Liverpool for years, because when Liverpool was founded, there was an antiquary who was going around for King John at the time, and he came across this place called Hyerton, which is Everton. And he was standing on Everton, Everton Hill, where where St. George's Church is now. Well, he was standing approximately around there, and he was looking down at Liverpool, and he went down, and as he went into Liverpool, there was no such place as Liverpool, you see. But what he'd seen a one-masted vessel, and there was a fella there, and he was Irish. So he was trading with locals, he was trading linen and glassware. That's what he was trading with. So this antiquary went, whoa, an Irishman. It must be the nearest point from Ireland to Liverpool, if you know what I mean, which it wasn't, Scotland, if you know. But anyway, he said that must be the closest is Liverpool. So when he went back to King John, he said, listen, he said, there's land. He said, and I seen an Irishman, and he was trading, he was a trader. I said, what was he trading in? And he said, linen and glassware. And he went, wow. And he said, well, what's the name of the place? He said, there's no name. I go away. He said, yeah, there's no name. And he said, well, what's there? He said, there's lots and lots of laver around the shores, which laver was seaweed. So he said, okay. He said, what else is there? He said, well, people, these locals who are around, but don't live there because there's nothing there. Just a couple of shacks what fishermen use, when they fish in the pool. We said, they call it the pool. He says, yeah. So we named it King John Laver Pool. And that's how we got our name. So, so the Irish have been coming over since then. But when you get to around 1800, you have the Irish leaving Ireland to come over and work here in Liverpool. You have them coming over as dockers. So they started to come over then. But the biggest problem that they had about Liverpool was in 1847. But we've got to go back to 1566 and a fella by the name of Sir Humphrey Gilbert. And Sir Humphrey Gilbert was the half-brother of Sir Walter Raleigh. Now, at the time, they were always looking at Spain, the English. They were looking at Spain. And Spain had conquered America, the southern part, the Caribbean and Brazil, places like that, and they get to America. Finally, gets to America. So they conquered there, and what they were saying to the court of Elizabeth was they're preaching the devil's religion, which was Catholicism. Because don't forget, we had a Reformation, and we got rid of Catholicism, and we brought in, we protested against Rome, in the 8th. Anyway, so he said, we have to get over to America to teach them the proper religion, which is our religion. Never mind the Roman religion. That's how they pronounced it. So that was the motive, that was their idea, to go over to America and, the heathens there, teach them the proper religion. The heathens being, obviously, the American indigenous people, the first Americans. That's who they are, proper Americans, the indigenous native. So anyway, we went, okay, but we'll have to look around to see how it would be going over to this place, and how the natives would greet us. So they looked around. Now, they couldn't go over to France because France had just kicked them out anyway, because they'd always been at wars with France anyway. So they looked over at Holland and they went, no, we can't go there either. So what they did, they looked towards Ireland. Now, Ireland spoke Gaelic. They spoke Gaelic. So they said, well, we go over to Ireland and test the water there to see how the native would greet us. But they went over 1566 at Humphrey Gilbert. And that was the beginning of it. That was the beginning of it. And what you've got now is rebels, because they went over in order to cause famine. If they're against us and they want to start fighting or, whatever, we'll cause famine. And that's what they did. In 1566, they scorched the land. They set fire to the land. So anyway, eventually they had taken over, but they had many rebels. Now, people think that there was only one famine, but there wasn't one famine. And this is the English. This is the English. There was a fellow by the name of Thomas Churchyard, who was a Liverpool writer. And he went over to Ireland with Humphrey Gilbert. And he sailed from Liverpool, by the way. So he went over and he wrote something which is on the lines of, when he went there, he put every man, woman, and child of them to the sword. This is said Humphrey Gilbert. If they didn't yield their land, he put every one of them to the sword. Man, woman, and child of them. So you had rebels, rebellions, not rebels. You had rebellions going on for years. So you have 1566. Then there was another famine in 1727. Then you had another one in 1729. Then you had another one in 1740. Then you had another one in 1800. And William Pitt, the younger, who was Prime Minister at the time, said, I've had enough of this. This is shocking. We can't be having this. So what happened in 1801? Ireland was brought into the Union. So this is now where we have England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. So they were brought into the Union then, so that people wouldn't starve because of these famines. So you've got to ask, who's starting these famines? Well, obviously it was the English who was starting these famines. So by 1844, what you had from America was these potatoes. Now, don't forget, Sir Walter Raleigh, he brought the first potatoes over and tobacco from America. And it was the Americans who cultivated the potatoes. So as they were coming over in 1844, they went to the northern coast of France and Belgium and Holland, these big batches of potatoes, and also the home counties here, right here, Essex, Sussex, and Middlesex, here, they're the home counties. And the potatoes, this is 1843, I'm sorry, and they were planted. They were planted. So in 1844, they were no good. It was a bad batch from America. And even in the northern France, Belgium and Holland, they were all bad crops. It was a bad batch. So there was a fellow by the name of Major John Rossman over in Ireland, and for years he'd been trying to get rid of. Now, don't forget that the English confiscated the lands of the Irish in 1566 when he went over.
Yeah.
Sir Humphrey Gilbert. So the Irish themselves were put to work on the farms. They were given a little plot of land so that they could grow their own produce, but they had to work the land for the English. This is why you've got the big mansions in Ireland today, the Republic of Ireland, because it was the English who were building these big mansions like they were building them here. So anyway, you're at this batch now, bad batch, because this Major John Rossman wanted to get rid of these. They were Catholic people who was running the land, working their lands, and he just wanted to get rid of them anyway. And he couldn't get rid of them. So what he did, he got a batch of potatoes, planted them on his land, a place called Strokestown. So he planted them. So now there was a potato blight, just like there was a potato blight in Northern Europe and also the home counties the year before. So by 1845, there's what you call, it's what you call the Irish famine, potato famine. What you call the potato famine. But what you've got is one of the greatest writers of all time, was George Bernard Shaw. Now, George Bernard Shaw said, how could there be a famine when the country was full of food? Because it was. It was full of food. Now, don't forget, this was Strokestown, right? And there was also potatoes, not the bad potatoes, not the damaged ones, not the blighted ones, but good potatoes being exported into England. The staple diet for the Irish was the potato.
Yeah.
Nothing else, just the potato. So anyway, there was the Great Hunger. Now it was the Great Hunger because people were actually starving. And there was the Great March. Let me show you something. So you look at these here. Look. So you had the Great Movement, the Great March Now, the Great March, the English were awful to the Irish. They were awful, absolutely awful to them. So they had to go on the move because of the blight. Now, don't forget what Bernard Shaw said. The country was full of food, which it was. So the people of Ireland were just being starved. They wanted to get rid of the Irish. They always had done from Cromwellian days. Cromwell wanted to get rid of them.
Yeah.
He wanted to commit genocide, that man, the Irish.
Yeah.
Because the English, for some reason, I don't like saying this, hated the Irish. And it's just like today, where you've got the most of Europe and America and this country being Russophobes against Russia. See what I mean? And this is what it was like in this country about the Irish. This is what it was like. And where you can see that map, and you see those little green places there, they're all ports. They are all ports. And as it says there, the population increased there of the Irish because the Irish were moving to the ports simply because they wanted to get away. They wanted to get away from famine-related diseases and everything. People were actually eating grass. That's how dehumanized the Irish were. They were eating grass. Anything they could get. People were found dying in ditches. They had no shelter. They were crossing Ireland to get to these ports, just to get away from the Irish. It was shocking what was happening. Shocking. So you've got those ports there, you've got 3 ports. And this was the plight of them. This is the plight of them. Approximately the number of people who died of starvation was 800,000 or famine-related disease. Well, no, it was more. That was estimated at the time. At the time. So it wasn't official when this particular 1.3 million died, but that wasn't official. That wasn't official. Then you're going back then around 1850 or whatever it was. But they reckon now today that nearly 3 million people has actually died. 3 million.
Yeah.
So it was like a genocide.
Yeah. And you add that to the likes of what you said about the evilness of the Cromwellian regime.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And there you've got the famines at Southwest Ulster was the hardest hit during the Irish famine. 42% of the population of Cavan who died, 29% of the population of Fermanagh and Monaghan, 28%, 29% and 28%. And it's shocking. So this Strokes town that had all this, terrible blight, but it spread right around Ireland. It spread, so they were all on the march. Now, in 1846, the English said, what are we going to do with all these people marching? They're on the move. They're all going over. And what they built, the first of its kind, not in this country because there was loads here, and that were workhouses. So they built them all over Ireland, loads and loads of workhouses, more workhouses in Ireland. And they hadn't seen one before 1845 or 6 when they started to build them. They hadn't seen a workhouse. Never seen a workhouse. Now the Irish, before the other fellow went over, Sir Humphrey Gilbert, were just great people. They helped each other. if anything, like a crop failed, you know, they'd help those farmers out. The farmers helped everybody. They helped themselves. They helped people who couldn't afford things. This is what Ireland was like. It was like a big community. They helped each other. So anyway, getting back to the famine of 1845 and the big movement to get to these ports, what had happened was, with these workhouses being built, by 1847, people, no matter, they were trying to raise money somehow to board ships to get away from Ireland, to get away. They didn't want to go to England. They wanted to go to America. The lands of freedom. Come here, you'll be okay. Well, they didn't know that they'd be okay. But family members actually went before the famine over to America, and they're saying it's great over here. It's brilliant. So they tried, you know, these people, no matter who they were, wanted to get to Ireland. And a great majority of the Irish were illiterate because there was no education for them over in Ireland, nothing like that. Like in this country, there's hardly any education anyway for the likes of us. Hardly at all. It was all for the elite education. Yeah. So they were all packed up, trying to get to America. And as ships was coming in here, 80,000 of Irish came into Liverpool during 1847, the influx of the Irish, that's what it was called. And the impact it had on Liverpool was astronomical because they really thought, they sailed for days, you know, and they really thought that they got to America. They didn't want to go to England. They had enough of the English. And don't forget that it wasn't only deaths of starvation that was happening in Ireland at the time.
No.
You know, people, you know, the ordinary Irish were going to these ports as well. Well, they've seen these ships and they were trying to rob food, but they were being shot by the soldiers for robbing the food because they were starving. So by the time they set foot here, they thought, oh, it's great here. We're in America. Because they didn't know accents or anything. They really thought that they were in America. That's the illiteracy of them, you see. And obviously the days of sailing. And in the Mersey, there were ships that were quarantined because of these famine-related diseases. Famine-related diseases. And it was shocking. It really was shocking. You know, people were dying on board these ships. They wouldn't allow them in. They wouldn't allow them to get on the shore. They wouldn't allow these people on shore. And then you had here in Liverpool, people who did get ashore, they started to suffer from these famine-related diseases. And that's what you call, it was louse-born, what you call louse-born. It was shocking, these louse-born diseases, because the lice or whatever it was coming out of them. It was inside them, it was coming out of them. It was coming out of them, Anthony. And they were put in workhouses. That's where they went, in workhouses. And they were dying in the workhouses. And all of a sudden, they couldn't bury them. They didn't want to bury them because it was costing money. So they were throwing them in lime pits. And when they first started to bury them, they started to bury them in St. Oswald's. up in Old Swan. And St. Oswald's was the biggest burial ground for the Irish up there. Still is today, as it is.
Wow.
St. Oswald's and Old Swan. So now you have in Liverpool many deaths, loads of them. But you had the like more or less the people who weren't suffering from louse-borne disease, and they went to the nearest place where the Irish were congregating, and that was in the Scotland Road area.
Yeah.
And they right next to. Now, don't forget, no matter if they were starving or were anything, they wanted to get to their church. So the nearest church was St. Anthony's, a Catholic church. So they wanted to go there. And who lived around there? With the Italians.
Yeah.
Simply because of the church. So you have now the Italians. You had the Irish there first, right? So you had the Italians now, and they were living side by side.
Yeah.
But the Irish was incredible. Out of the 80,000 that came into Liverpool during the influx, 60,000 of them stayed. That's why you had a massive Irish population here in Liverpool.
Yeah.
It was absolutely incredible, Anthony. So you had them staying around the Scotland Road area.
Yeah.
You had them staying there. Because when I said about the Italians being here, the Italians, there was only a few of them. And they were what you call terrazzo floor layers. And the mosaic buildings, the buildings that was being built and had these mosaic, because we couldn't do the mosaic. We never had the expertise. So if anyone wanted any mosaic done, they sent for the Italians. So when they came over to do all these terrazzo floors, they asked, where's the nearest church? St. Anthony's, Scotland Road.
Yeah.
Right? So there was only a few of them. There was only a few. It wasn't a massive community or anything. And it wasn't until the 1870s that the Italians started to come over then. But they were on the way to America. Everybody who came into Liverpool, believe it or not, wanted to get to America.
Yeah.
But they seen how good the place was. And they stayed. The Irish didn't want to stay. The Irish, if they would have found out they're English, they would have got off. But they had to stay. Some of them, most of them had to stay simply because they never had the fare to get to America. So they made the best of it here.
Yeah.
And they still went through terrible times. And I'll tell you for why. In the newspapers, I was looking for it before and I couldn't find it. But I will get it one day. And I've got a paper. I've got a paper where, it gives you quotes from the Liverpool newspapers. And they really had a go at the Irish. They really, to be honest, I can't read it because I went to the opticians last week and I've got bloody cataracts, believe it or not. And I've got these special glasses coming this week. I've got to pick them up on Wednesday. So I'll be able to read properly, if you know what I mean. So I will read it out when I get hold of it. Anyway.
It's horrifying now, Frank, the thought that this race of beautiful people from a beautiful part of the world were persecuted, hounded, murdered. And
they were murdered. And it was shocking because they were even shot here, believe it or not. They were shot by soldiers because of these famine-related diseases. It was horrible. They were better off dead. That's what I mean. They were actually better off dead because there was nothing no one could do. Louse-borne. Think about louse-borne diseases. Anyway, it was just horrible for these wretched people. So, you have now a scenario where you have the people now living in the Scotland Road area trying to find work. That's the most important. Now you have the railway system. Now the railway system, more Irish worked on the railway system than anybody, because the navvies. Now the navvies is a shortened version of navigators. They were the greatest of all navigators. They were unbelievable. The navvies. They worked the socks off, and this is why, these companies hired these people, and this was going on in the papers as well. The Liverpool papers. They're stealing our jobs.
Yeah.
They're stealing our jobs. These Irish, these drunken Irish. The propaganda that was coming out was unbelievable. It was unbelievable by our papers, Liverpool papers. They were calling them thieves, drunkards, taking the jobs. It was shocking what they were coming out with. And that's how they greeted the Irish here in Liverpool. They were saying they were nothing but prostitutes. They were thieves. They were drunkards. But most importantly, they were taking the jobs of the native. So again, we always talk about propaganda, and we were the best for it. Even Joseph Goebbels said that the British were the best for that's where the British propagandists, believe it or not, were the role model for Joseph Goebbels.
Yeah.
He actually said it. So anyway, you have these here now, the Irish. And don't forget what George Bernard Shaw said. How could there be a famine when the country was full of food? That's what he said. And it was right. It was full of food. It was full of everything. Even potatoes, all because, there was a blight. And you know how that Ranger John Ross Marr acquired his land, 10,000 acres, well, 9,000 acres of Strokestown. Do you know how he acquired it? Tell you how he acquired it. His great, whatever it was, granddad, during the Cromwellian periods, when Cromwell's army came over here, or came over to Ireland to kill them all. I'm talking about slaughtering them. Because he slaughtered more Irish than anyone else, this general, he gave him as a great present, as a great token, 9,000 acres of Strokestown. So by the time 1844 came and he was planting, like his ancestor, his descendants, he wanted to get rid of these Catholic workers, and he planted these bad potatoes, these blighted potatoes, and that's how the 1845 famine started. And this is what you get. This is the Irish. The Irish were dehumanized by the English over in Ireland, over in their homeland. They were dehumanized. It was like a genocide. going on. And what does it remind you of today? Gaza. It's incredible. It's incredible.
It does, and also it reminds me of the native Indians of America.
Of course. And they're still living on reservations.
Yes.
I'll just, Eve Sarah Robinson, she's lovely. She said, we went to Ireland a few years ago. We found that Queen Victoria gave a donation and it was the biggest that anyone ever gave. Yeah, she did. She did. Because of what was going on. But that, you've got to understand that you mentioned Cromwell over in Ireland. He's the most hated Englishman because of what had happened when he was in charge in the 1840s, 50s.
Yeah. And there's a later English gentleman who got the same name, evil name, with the Irish. I read that during one of the famines that the king of Saudi Arabia gave a bulk of money towards the Irish.
Yeah.
British wouldn't allow all of the money to be given to the Irish.
Yeah.
So they sectioned it.
Yep. Well, it's like Queen Victoria, you know, as Eve said, she gave some donation, but the British government tried to stop her from giving her this donation.
Yeah.
And it destroyed, believe it or not, you know, British prime ministers. When, as I said, in 1801, William Pitt the Younger, and he says, we've got to bring Ireland into the Union. Well, that destroyed it. It destroyed them. Because as soon as he brought them into the Union, they got rid of them because they didn't want the Irish into the Union.
Yeah.
Because they'd have... Look, when they took over the land, the English, for years, as I said, all those famines, they didn't want to give any Irish anything, albeit that they were working the land. It was shocking what they were doing to the Irish through the centuries. Shocking. And that's what I mean about, you know, 3.5 million, you know, 3.3 million, 3.4 million died. But I'm going back from 1566 and the very first famine. Then you had the second one in 1727, 1729, 1740, 1800, and the 1845 one. And all that collectively brings us up to 3 million, 3.3, 3.2, 3.3 million people who died. There was a fella, but I think his name was MacBride or something like that. I'm not quite so sure. Is it MacBride? And he went over to America as a young lad, 17. You know, he just went, and his family, you know, giving big kisses and everything. But this is in the 1820s. This is in the 1820s when he went over to America. You know, for fortune, most probably. Anyway, they packed him up. They give him what money they had, little money they had, and he went over to Ireland. When he came over, I think it was in 1848, looking for his family. Every single member, I think there was like 129 members, you know, of brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, cousins, or whatever, you know, a big group of them. Yeah. 129 of them. He was the only survivor because they all died during the famine. That's how bad it was. That's how bad it was.
And it rivals the Holocaust.
Of course it does.
genocides of the. But again, again, history propaganda. We weren't taught that. Certainly not in Catholic schools. And as you know, my family roots are Irish, from Scotland Road, from Ireland. We're never taught that. We're never taught the truth. So things have never changed since Robert Cecil's days or his bent father. You know, it's like there's history, our version of it.
It's horrible, isn't it? You know, the way we, but the English have treated people like that, you know, through the centuries. It's been horrible. And it says the English who was the cause of the 1845 famine and the famines before. It wasn't the doing of the Irish themselves.
No. And
go on.
I so get what you were saying before about the Italians that came to the city here, Liverpool, and the Irish, and there's a camaraderie, a joint friendship in faith and also in poverty, because they were, if you were put on Scotland Road, you weren't there with the elite. And it was generations of hard work that brought us into, you know. And I'd never forget. Lainey and I have always had this thing, and we talk to you about it. Never forget where you came from or who you are. And I know you don't. We don't. That is why also when someone says, "Where are you from?" "You're English." I'll say, "Well, I'm from Liverpool, which is near England. My ancestors are Scottish and Irish, you know. So English is way down the list."
Yeah. See, you know, people say, "I'm proud to be English and proud of this." I'm a proud Scouser like yourself and like a lot of other Scousers, because we felt the wrath of English governments or British governments, if you like, throughout the years.
Yeah.
That's why we didn't get our city status. What we gave to the world, not just the country, but to the world.
Yeah.
And yet we didn't get a city status until 1880. 1880. We got our city status after Disraeli. And, you know, so you have this great thing about the English, you know, being brilliant. You've only got to look today. I'm not being funny. Who's the most hated football team? It's Liverpool. They just get criticised all the time, no matter what. Now, if it'll be, I'm not being funny when I say this, but if it'll be like Manchester United or say like Arsenal, for example, just those two teams,
Yeah.
and they did what we did in Europe, you know, winning European Cups or whatever. I know this is a history show, but I'm trying to give an example of how they look at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Now, it'll be fun. It'll be in your face all the time if it would be Manchester United, or if it would be like Arsenal or somebody. It'll be in your face. But we just get, oh yeah, that's Liverpool. I always remember coming back in 78, from Wembley. And I got a lift off these lads in a van, after the game. And we all come up and we got lost, and we was over the mall somewhere. And we went into this little shop to get drinks and that. This was like 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning. And, you know, these lads are all at the red and white scarves on and whatever. Little mad hats, red and white hats. And, we were asking for drinks. And one of the lads just said to the, he's a lovely old man. And he said, what way is it to Wembley, mate? And he went, what, Wembley? He said, yeah, what way is it? He went, why? He said, well, we're going to match. He said, Liverpool. He said, yeah. And he said, yeah, you played last night. You played last night. And he said, I know we haven't played, we're playing tonight. It's so funny. But anyway, my point is, when we bought a paper, we said to the fella, we all know we've just got back, we're lost. Anyway, when we opened the paper, it wasn't like on the back page that we'd won the European Cup, retained it. The only British club to retain the European Cup. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Liverpool seems to be pushed out for some reason.
Just eternally on every subject, on everything. I don't understand it, but I'm an eternal student. I like to learn, but the more you learn about certain things, the more angry it makes you, and that's one. Yeah.
Well, if you look at that picture, it's a smashing picture, and what you've got, if you look at it symbolises everything about the famine. You've got on the right there an Englishman playing croquet on a lawn. And just across the stream, you've got the demon, the blight of the famine. The blight of the famine, the demon coming for the people inside the house.
Yes.
But you've got an Irish person of goodness fighting off the demon to save the family. That's a great print. Yeah. It's a fantastic print. And it just symbolises what the English were doing, why people were dying, why people were starving, and they could be playing croquet.
So this is our conversation tonight with chats as well, and we've dipped into social media, we've dipped into all sorts of things, and we're in the middle of one of the greatest catastrophes of modern world in America's problems. It's that eternal mob rule which is led by lies, propaganda.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. Let's see what some of the comments. Thank you, Eve, for that wonderful comment. Thank you. Thank you. You never walk alone, family. He says, yeah, I feel the same. But thank you, Frank, for sharing about the famine, because I haven't heard about it since I was a student 8 years ago. Since I don't read anymore, to hear you is good for my leaking. That's not learning, he means.
Yeah.
Learning of new topics. I wish I read more, but I lost the habit with work and watching TV series. But to be honest, I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. Don't blame you there. You never walk alone. And
the greatest gift really we can give ourselves is to learn something new.
Yeah, of course. And the football flashback says, yeah, me too. I worry I'm too dependent on my passion of football alone. I don't enjoy my 9 to 5, so outside of it, I just see my girlfriends and watch the footy as an escapism. Well, to be honest, that's the best. Anthony mentioned the 80s when apathy could have easily descended on the city of Liverpool because of what Thatcherism was doing to us. Managed decline, Aaron Jeffrey L. Managed decline, the manage of a decline of a city. They wanted that. And I always remember an MP by the name of Theresa Gorman. And she said, I'd like a wall built around Liverpool so that future generations could see how they lived, what it was like to live back then. That's what she said. Build a wall around Liverpool. That was a Tory MP, Theresa Gorman, and she said that way back in 1991 or 92. I'll never forget that, and I'll never forget the 80s and Mrs. Thatcher.
Oh.
And this is why you get today, Anthony, and the people, on the chat. This is why you've got a banner, Scouse not English, the Republic of Liverpool, because we're a forgotten city. And during the 80s, as you said, with the managed decline of a city and the apathy and the terrible unemployment that was caused as well, deliberately, football saved us. That's why you had Liverpool, a great team. Everton were a great team. So you had the two best teams. It wasn't the Premier League then, it was the First Division, dominating English football.
Yeah.
Dominating English football. Liverpool was dominating Europe as well.
Yeah.
And that saved us from all apathy.
Did.
We could have easily have become apathetic, this city of ours.
We did. Well, it's like football flashback. It said then, it's like the work front was dire, so you were lucky to have any work at all, and the concept of enriching yourself by what you did as a 9 to 5 wasn't there. You needed something that would ground you in family and friendship and communication, and football was the thing because everything else was hijacked.
Of course it was. Oh, there's DW. Hiya, DW. I sent you a message, last week.
Oh. Good evening.
Frank Carlyle and chat. He's a great fella, him. He's like myself, and like yourself, to be honest, and the rest of the chat on here. As I said, with the Irish, it was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. Genocidal. As I mentioned before, that's what was happening in Ireland. But it wasn't just happening in 1845. It was happening before then. Going right back, as I mentioned, about the scorched land in 1566 by Sir Humphrey Gilbert, and what Thomas Churchyard, the Liverpool writer, said.
Yeah.
If they didn't yield the land, they would be put to the sword, man, woman, and child of them. And that happened. He had a lane of heads, He had a lane of heads on spikes looking up while people were going through that lane of heads up to the tent of Gilbert, knocking on the door and saying, we're yielding our land. That's what he was like. It was ruthless what he was doing, going back to 1566. Then, as I said, You know, that wasn't the first famine. There was another one, 1727, then another one, 1729, 1740, 1800. And then that's when William Pitt brought the Irish into the equation of the Union in 1801. But that destroyed them. It was just mad. It was just absolutely mad. Do you know the Americans? The Americans in 1846 sent over a load of maize to help the Irish. A load of maize. But they didn't know what to do with it. The Irish, they didn't know what to do with the maize. They didn't know how to, what's this? What do we do with this? These were people, you know, I hate saying it, but they were illiterate. They just worked the land. They didn't know what maize was. It was so sad, you know, when you read what was happening during that period. It was just so sad. Like, you can't sit back and read these things and not feel any empathy at all.
No.
It was just so sad.
Absolutely. The upset and everything that goes with it. It's and to me, way of thinking, we hear an awful lot, and we've seen it in various things, uprising in the British Isles, where people say, "I'm British, me." The very notion of someone being pure British, the only pure people of the land that are the Scottish, the Welsh, and the Irish, and the Northerners, because everyone else is a European, Greek, Italians, Germans. We've got a German royal family. We've got, you know, so it's that kind of. I totally get what you said, and I totally agree. It's Scouse and proud. If you're in this area of the world, certainly not England, then there's a pride. And I get that with the Irish, and my heart goes out whenever.
Don't forget, you know, they spoke Gaelic.
Yeah.
And when the English set foot there, they didn't just build like, you know, workhouses. They built fortifications. And if anyone rebelled, they were put to death. It's as simple as that. Not only that, but their language was taken away from them. It was just taken away from them. And that's what's happening now. People don't really, I was talking about propaganda before. That's what's happening now today in Ukraine. That's why Russia went in, because they suppressed the Russian language, the Ukrainians. They suppressed it. They suppressed all culture of Russia. They banned everything. And if you protested, they put you to death. It's as simple as that. Just like the Irish. It happens. It's just like Gaza, what's happening in Gaza. And there's you have Trump saying that we're taking the land. Don't forget, his son-in-law, Kushner, he's bought land there, but he bought it last year in Gaza. His idea is to build a big complex. That's why Trump came out and said that. I just don't know what's happening in the world. It hasn't changed. As I mentioned before about the 50s being the most sedate decade, but albeit that there was a Korean War going on.
Yeah.
And then we went into the 60s. Music saved us. in the 60s. You know that, and I know that. Albeit that you had, in 1963, the November thing, with JFK being assassinated, one of the greatest presidents ever.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah. And as you said rightly, it's another biggest shock of history, historic event.
Look, Black and White Boy, the Black and White Boy. That's a great name. Your history shows are fantastic. Thanks, Anthony and Frank.
Thank you. Glad you're enjoying it. I love being a part.
Look at that TW there, look. Anthony. That's amazing. Have you noticed the way he's put the maze? Amazing. That's great, that. Clever. He's a
TW.
clever little fella, there's TW. But anyway, I think I'll be doing the First World War next time. I'm going to go backwards. Yeah, I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go from the First World, all right, someone asked me to do about the Irish.
I'm so glad you did. So really, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so glad you did. And I think it was important to kind of bring it to modern times when you mentioned Scotland Road and the Italians and the Irish and as we know, the other nations that joined us, the Germans, that was such a melting pot, Ellis Island.
Well, that's it was a melting pot, and that was that's why I wanted to film, even going back to 2015, but I couldn't do it because of the people don't realise that there was a civil war going on in Ukraine. And I said, I can't go to Odessa. I wanted to go to Odessa. I wanted to go to Napoli. I wanted to go to Dublin. And obviously filming here as well, Liverpool, and ending up in Ellis Island.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to gather all the information, go to Naples and say, this is where the Italians set foot, embarked on ships, gave why they left Italy to go to America and ended up in Liverpool. I wanted to go to Odessa and explain why the Jews, they were expelled from Russia during the 1880s, and they came here to Odessa to set sail to America, but they ended up in Liverpool. This is why we've got a big Italian community. This is why we've got a big Jewish community and a big Irish community. Because these are the three nations I wanted to do.
Yeah.
The three nations of communities here. Yeah. And then obviously in Ellis Island as well, where some of them went back. But that's what I wanted to do, going back. But I couldn't do it because of Odessa.
Yeah.
And the Civil War. People don't realise about the Civil War going on then. The Russian-speaking people were being slaughtered by the Ukraine. The Russian-speaking people are Ukrainians. And they were being slaughtered by Ukrainians because they spoke Russian. Just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. And ZW says, odd fact, Frank. In the 80s, miners' strike, Ukraine sent a lot of aid to the Durham NUM. Turns out all that aid came from the Donbass, where the Russians were. I didn't know that. Western Ukraine sent street FA. So the Donbass, that's where the Russians, and thank you for that, TW, thank you. Because the Donbass area was where This regime now, this regime was slaughtering the people because they spoke Russian. They spoke Russian. And you've got the Azovs, and people still don't realise that they're full of Nazis. And I mean proper Nazis. I'm talking swastika people here. That's who I'm talking about. They celebrate a fella named Stepan Bandera every year, his birthday. Don't forget that these same people desecrated all the Russian Orthodox churches, imprisoned priests and churchgoers into the Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church. Not only that, but Zelensky, during the time when he was president, and then he refused this, a peace deal going back to March 2022 to save hundreds of thousands of lives. He imprisoned his opposition, all the media, he put them all in jail and executed some of them. And this is what I mean about genocidal people. You've got Netanyahu. I don't care what anyone says. He's committing genocide.
Yeah.
And what Trump said about making the West Bank a Riviera, well, that's ethnic cleansing. He said, I don't care where the people go. Let Egypt take them or let Jordan take them. These are Palestinian people on their own land.
Yeah.
This was like the Irish. As I just mentioned, they wanted to get shut of the Irish. From the Elizabethan courts wanted to get rid of the Irish. Cromwell wanted to get rid of the Irish. When during the Earl of Essex, this Robert Cecil, he sent, because he was always trying to court Elizabeth, who was a man, by the way. That was a man. And Robert Cecil was getting there. He knew about Elizabeth. So he exiled. He never exiled him. He just sent the Earl of Essex over to Ireland. And Essex said, what the fuck am I doing? I'm sorry to swear. Sorry. I'm sorry, Eve, if you're still listening in. He said, what the fuck am I doing here? What am I doing here? I don't want to be killing these people. So we tried to have a bloodless coup. And what had happened was he had a spy. And that spy went and told the other fellow, Lord Monteagle, his name was. Lord Monteagle, who was a Roman Catholic, by the way. So, he had to have. He hated Catholics, by the way, Robert Cecil. He was the most powerful man in the land.
Yeah.
And he had a spy who was a Roman Catholic, and that was Lord Monteagle. And I'll be doing that, the gunpowder plot and everything, and that will all come to the fore about the Earl of Essex and everybody. Right. So anyway, the bloodless coup failed, and he was put to death, Essex, because he found out about Elizabeth. That's great, that TW. I'm made up about that. Western Ukraine, and that's who Russia are fighting now, trying to denazify. That Stepan Bandera, he put 400,000 Jews to death. He wore a Nazi uniform, Bandera, and they celebrate his birthday every year. That's who's fighting the Russians. That's why Putin wanted to denazify, and we're supplying them. TW says, I need to get more. You bang on, Frank. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. And DW says, where do you get all your info from, Frank? You should recommend books and that. Thing is, I'm a PhD. I've done it all, DW. I've done all that. I've done it all from the Irish all the time.
That's a good point from GW. I know you don't go out and buy stuff, but like me and a lot of chat want to know more about a time or place or a person. If you come across a good book that you think is close to
there's one by Frank O'Neill or Frank Neal. I forget the title. I will get the title for you. It's all about it, and it's all about the influx anyway into this city of ours. Don't forget about Dandy Pat as well. You know, you remember Dandy Pat, don't you? You heard about him. You know, the bottom of Scotland Road. You had a little monument dedicated to Dandy Pat. It's like a little fountain. And Dandy Pat, he didn't half help the Irish because he was Irish himself.
He had the pub, Morning Star pub.
Morning Star pub, indeed.
He would invite Irishmen or workmen down in the morning and try and find work for them. So
that's right.
Pub.
And you had the 98 shop as well, facing the Morning Star pub, the 98 shop, because there was a revolution then, wasn't it? The Irish. Absolutely brilliant. You know, so DW, if you ever come and visit me, I'll give you loads of stuff on the Irish. My stuff. Loads of it. From the likes of Sir Humphrey Gilbert and Thomas Churchyard. Will do. And the North Red says, put an Irishman on a spit and the British will always get another Irishman to turn him. Terence McSweeney. That's a terrible quote, isn't it, really? But
it is. I kind of see where that comes from.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just like the Jews in these concentration camps. They were called capos, and they were told the capos were picking out the Jews to go into the chambers.
I know.
They were forcing them in, the capos.
It's unbelievable to think that that could be done. What did you do?
Yeah, look, TW says, thanks, Anthony. Exactly right. Like what Frank mentions about Odessa and its role in Jewish migration. If there's ever a particular book, it should be mentioned. So please, so people can learn more.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll tell you what you might know. I'm talking to DW here and the North Reds and the rest of them. You might know this. Right. One of the little Jewish boys who came over to England from Odessa, being expelled, as a little Jew, with his family. He came here and he couldn't speak a word of English. Could not speak a word of English. And St. Francis Xavier's, a Catholic school, brought him in. And he learned his English in a Catholic school, St. Francis Xavier's, up in Salisbury Street and Shaw Street, in between. It's a university now. And he learned his English there. And he went over to America, finally got there after 6 months because there was a 6-month waiting list. And he gets over there. And he became one of the greatest stars of the silver screen at the time. And he was the very first person to speak in a film, the talkies, then it became the talkies. And he said, "You ain't seen nothing yet." And that was Al Jolson. Incredible, isn't it, really?
Brilliant.
Incredible to think that that kid learnt his English in Liverpool, in a Liverpool Catholic school. He was a little Jewish boy. And went to America and became one of the greatest of all entertainers.
Yeah.
And the North Red collaboration was always a disease in British Irish affairs. Yes. And Black and White Boy. Knowledge is power. I hope to meet both of you when I move to Liverpool, says the Black and White Boy.
Oh,
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I'll always meet up with people. And DW, wow, that's obviously about Al
Al.
Jolson. Yeah, Al Jolson. Anyway, Anthony, I've got to finish. And that print there, by the way, you remember when I showed the map?
Yes.
This is where the people were getting boarding the ships. They were just boarding them. They just wanted to get away from the English. In Ireland, they were leaving the land to get away from the Irish, the English. They wanted to get away. And when they set sail, you know, people were coming to Liverpool. They thought that they were landing in America. They really did. They wanted to get away from the English. Anyway, that's that. What do you think tonight, Anthony?
You know what, Frank? Thank you for the education. You know, I love history. I love our friendship and our shows, and it's so good to have chat with us all the time. And there's never been a time I've come on and not learned something, and I thank you from that.
No, thank you, you know what I mean, because, you know, I love you and everything else. And the next time, what we're going to do, I'm going to change from a Monday night to a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
That's what and these are just going to be, as I said, specials. The likes of what I've done about the Irish. The next one, I'm going to do the First World War and the impact it had on Liverpool. So Liverpool's not forgotten, by the way. Liverpool isn't forgotten. But the impact it had, the First World War, and how America cornered the market. That's why they stayed out of it, because they were cornering the market. I'm talking about the trade market. And they said, oh, we can put our dollar in here. And that's how they got the might of the dollar, through the First World War. But there's loads to talk about with that. So I'll be doing that. Then I'll be going back in time. I'll be talking about what was happening to the ordinary people of the 19th century, right? Then I'll be, you know, don't forget that you had a Boer War, you know, leading up to a Boer War. Then you had the Crimean War. So I'll be talking all about that. You know, when I'm talking about the 19th century, then I'll be talking about the Civil War, the English Civil War. I'll be talking about Cromwell as well, you know, during the English Civil War, if you know what I mean. But before then, I'll be talking about the Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, and what kind of a person was Napoleon. You know, did he have something to do with the revolution? No, he was just a soldier. And he was a great man. He's one of my heroes. Then I go back to the English Civil War, as I said. Then I go further back to the Romans. I want to talk about, which I left you there, Roman Britain. What was happening? Why did the Romans come here? Why did they come here? What was the purpose? So we'll be talking about what did they do for the country. You see, we were living in mud huts, straw roofs.
Yeah.
When they came, they had big temples and everything in Rome, all over Italy, wherever. Fantastic. RDW. Respect, Anthony. That's nice.
Thank you, GW. Thank you for tonight. Respect you.
And Red says, ooh, Cromwell. Yeah, talk about him. The Liverpool videos. Thank you for tonight, lads. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you. Poor Frank will be going to sleep.
We have.
DW, I'm made up with DW joining us tonight. Thanks, Frank, Anthony, and chat. Thank you.
Thanks to you. All the best.
And the videos. I was wondering with your experience if you had any tips, because my girlfriend is really mad at me for forgetting to get a valet. What do you think I'm on my own? I forgot about everything, mate. Birthdays, Christmas gifts, Valentine's. So there you go. See, I can't even go down there. And the videos carries on by saying, I told her I'd get a gift, but after she said, no, I'm not thoughtful enough, and that she needs a break, I'm now distraught. There's too much drama and dating. Absolutely. What a delight. What a delight. Love it. And the Cozy False Nine is answering to the videos. I can understand. I recently got into a fight, but I got a ring. So now we're made up. But girls can be full of drama. It's tiring. In other words, what you're calling them is divas. But we're all divas, unfortunately. We can have a moan when we want. But Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you,
and,
Frank.
We'll have to chat about. We will really have to chat about the next one, which is World War One. Before we do it, and it'll be on a Wednesday, as I said.
Got a few heavy games.
Yeah.
On Wednesday. Yeah.
Exactly. So when we're not playing on a Wednesday, we'll just do it.
Well, I'll give you a ring and you talk.
Yeah. You've got to. And Trent, my guy, I prefer being single because my girl gave me too much anxiety. I prefer to stay away. I'm tired of women, I swear. They're going on about girls. I'm trying to finish. And the Cozy False says, but I love my dear girl. I wish she was easier to deal with. She needs a lot of compliments and gifts, which is tiring, but it's part of life. That's all you've got to do. Just show respect. Give it a nice kiss and cuddle now and again, and you're all right. That's all that I'm saying on that. And on that note, I just want to thank Gap Painting Services for sponsoring the Frank Carlyle show. Please get them in. Don't struggle painting. Don't overdo it. You could end up hurting yourself. Get these in. If you're a pensioner, you've got a great discount. If you're an NHS worker, you've got another great discount. And even so, if you're not fitting in one of those categories, believe you me, they're very reasonable. That's Gap Painting Services. First class lads, fully insured, fully time served, and 5-star customer ratings. That's what you need. Please don't struggle. Get them in. And that's Gap Painting Services who sponsor this particular show of ours. And this is nice. Trent, my guy, Frank, do get painting of discounts for people aged 35 or under. The only, what's he like? The only thing, you know, I know you're not in the category of being old, or if you work for the NHS, yeah, great. You get a special discount. But if you don't fit into, well, I know that you're a pensioner, they're still reasonable. Just don't struggle. And Christopher says, superb game, Frank and Anthony. All the best. Good night up the Reds. See you tomorrow night on the football show, by the way. See you tomorrow night. I'll be doing watch-alongs as well soon. Imagine me on a watch-along. Again, hell. Do they also provide painting outside the UK? I don't think so. I don't know, to be honest. Do you know what? I don't know. I don't know videos. Don't know. And the Trent, my guy, says, I work for an insurance company, but I'm not a senior position or anything, so I'd love a discount. Just phone them up and ask. That's all you've got to do. There's the number, and it's in the description and everything else. And Cody says, oh, why? Oh, wow, when will your first watch-along be? It'll be in a few weeks. I've got it sorted out in the next couple of weeks. I've just got to wait for Jason and certain things, but I will be doing the watch-along. I've been asked to do it. I'm so excited to see Frank celebrate with us and winning the league title live. Oh, damn, that's a foregone conclusion. Be well doing that. And the videos, crying with all of us, memories for a lifetime. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, come on, lads. Frank, if you're live for the Carabao Cup final against Newcastle, I will tune in. That will be a lot of fun. Yeah, it will be. I'll be live for that. That's a set. It'll be in like a couple of weeks, you know, definitely. All right. So listen, thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you, Gav. Most importantly, I've got to thank Jason. Yes. Jason, you know, he sets everything up, as you know, because I'm as useless as...
No, he's brilliant.
Exactly. And you never walk. So it's my dream for us, not just to win the Premier League, but also the Champions. I'd love to win the Champions League again. I've seen us win 6 of them on a personal basis. We are, look, saying the North Red, that's Gaelic, you know, and Amandla, I went to Palestine. I can't say that. I think one of the hardest languages is Gaelic, Irish Gaelic. And you never walk alone, you all. Thank you. Is that too much to ask for? No, it isn't. You never walk. No, it isn't. Yeah, look. I agree, free Palestine, even if I'm Jewish. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? Say, we've got a great community. Our football community on my pod is brilliant. I love them all. That's lovely, though. And Cozy False 9 says, if we had a Champions League final tomorrow, what 11 would you... I'm not going to... I want to go to bed. I love me. He says, Cody False, I'd love to hear your thoughts too, Anthony, as a Red.
My thoughts at the weekend, I don't think you'd want to hear.
No.
I think everyone shared them.
No, we don't want.
It was like watching a different team, but
shocking. Never again. I watched that again. And you never walk alone. Says, when is your next Liverpool live pod? Tomorrow, 8:00. 8:00 tomorrow night. It is. You never walk. And the North Red says, real Jewish people are fantastic human beings, my friend. I've got friends who are Jewish.
Yeah.
I've got friends who are Jewish. So I've got a book, one of them there. You know Eddie Klein, don't you?
Oh, lovely man. Yeah.
You know,
Eddie and Pam, yeah. Yeah.
I gave a talk up at Aintree Racecourse. The elders 70th there. So he said, will you give the talk? I said, yeah. Went up and gave the talk, you know, for the 70th. Lovely man.
Yeah, he is.
Lovely man.
He's written a wonderful book as well, biography.
I've got it here.
Yeah.
I've got it sitting on the fence, it's called. Sitting on the fence. I've got it somewhere here. See, when I look there, that's my library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he too is one of what we would call a Liverpool legend, isn't he? Really, really, really nice man.
Cozy False 9 says, please don't go to bed yet. We didn't get to talk about Liverpool enough. I know I went on about the Irish. We went on about everything tonight, but I will talk about Liverpool, what we gave to the world, not just the nation, but what we gave to the world, unless you want to talk. And the football says, thank you, Northwest. You never walk alone. It destroys me to see what's happening in Gaza. It is a tragedy, yes.
Yeah, it
And the
is.
football flash says, I want Netanyahu to step down. He should be in the Hague. He should be in the Hague. Frank, do you think he'd ever be able to do a 24-hour pod? You'd love that, wouldn't you? Because you can all talk to one another. Or would that be too long to be live in a row? Because you know that's how Mr. Beast blew up and got his channel to 1 million subscribers. I'll do my best. Yous are all great people. Yous are all great people, honest to God. And that's just, and I'm not just saying that, honestly. Cozy says, that would be so funny to talk about Liverpool for that long. No, it wouldn't, because I'd be, listen, I'm finishing. And I just want to thank everybody on chat tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, been great.
Thank you so much. I'm going to leave there. Let my guys king up. I'll finish there, boys. Thank you so much. Thank you. And as he says, we'll be talking about that tomorrow night. Trent. We'll be talking about the contracts, believe you me. Thank you, he says, the Liverpool videos. Thank you, gents, for your show and your time. I always appreciate it so much. You'll never walk alone. Thank you. Good night, boys and girls. Thank you so much.
Yeah.